Okay, let's move on to the unconscious mind. The unconscious are inner forces outside of your awareness that are directing your behavior. Wow.
That's not fair. That seems like not
fair. I know. The unconscious includes your thoughts, emotions, memories, desires, and motivations that lie outside of your awareness. Yet, they continue to exert an influence on your behavior nevertheless. Well, that's not fair. It can be seen as the source of hidden beliefs, fears, and attitudes that interfere with everyday life.
Well, it could also be the opposite of that. It could be help you make good decisions.
Well, that's true.
That's true.
The unconscious mind is a reservoir of feelings, thoughts, urges, and memories that are outside of your awareness. Most of the contents of the unconscious are unacceptable or unpleasant, such as feelings of pain, anxiety, or conflict. Now, this is Freud's theory, okay? I don't know that everything in my unconscious is unpleasant or unacceptable. I don't believe that.
That's a big what you said, it might be helpful.
Right. Okay, so according to Freud, the unconscious continues to influence our behavior and experience even though we are unaware of the underlying influence. Okay, let somebody else read.
The unconscious mind might be defined as that part of the mind which gives rise in a person's mind, but which the person is not aware of at the time of their occurrence. These can include unconscious feelings, unconscious or automatic skills, unnoticed perceptions, unconscious thoughts, unconscious habits, and automatic reactions, complexes, hidden phobias, and concealed desires. And you put in parentheses in red letters parts. The red letter edition.
Yes, that's right. So, if you think about some of those things that you read there, unconscious feelings, unconscious or automatic skills, perceptions, etc. Think about, I was just thinking about David with what he does every day in his work. I mean, not everybody has to tell you how to, you don't have to, in your conscious mind, think, how am I going to glue these two pipes together, right? It's a sort of an automatic response. I'm going to go to the truck, I'm going to get my pipe, I'm going to get my glue, I'm going to get everything that I need, right? So you're not consciously thinking, okay, now how do I do this? I got to go do this, this, and this. It's an automatic response. It's been stored either in your subconscious or your unconscious mind that you can go and retrieve. Just like, what's some of the things we learn when we're small? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, the subconscious comes into play when I'm troubleshooting.
Right. But you could be retrieving even those skills from your subconscious mind. Then thinking back when you were really small, things that we learn that become automatic. You know, the automatic.
How to feed yourself, you don't think about it.
How to walk.
At one time you had to know how to hold the fork and you didn't do it very well and get the food to your mouth.
Walking, talking.
Yeah.
Even sleeping is an automatic response, going to sleep. You know, your body, you know how to do that. You get tired, you lay down, you go to sleep.
Somehow it just happens.
Yes. So those would be unconscious things. What else could be unconscious? We got habits, perceptions, reactions, phobias. There's one that I just thought of that comes from parts of me is of having a fear of being stabbed.
Right.
But that came from parts.
It came from real experience. It
came
come from nowhere, and that's what we always say.
It came from a real
This must be
experience,
coming
yeah.
from somewhere. You don't just have that fear, that's specific, and have it come from somewhere.
Right. And so God was giving me the understanding that if you have a fear, especially a fear of dying, what is your fear of death in a certain way? Like my mom fears drowning. I talked to you about this, Karen. Mine was always fear of being stabbed to death. Karen said hers was not being able to breathe. Do you have one?
Old age.
That's a fear? And you want to die young, honey? Now be serious.
I am serious.
You're afraid of dying old?
No.
Or you're afraid of dying?
I don't want to die like some of the people that I see.
You don't want to suffer. Okay, so you have a
I've
fear
suffered enough. I'll
of
say that
suffering.
already. I should be able to go in a heartbeat. Boom, gone. See you later. Bye.
Yeah, I hear you.
Mhm.
That would be justice.
Yeah, so that, I mean, those are attached to parts of him
Yeah.
because you suffered so much when you were
Right.
young. What about you, Sam? You have a fear of dying a certain way?
No.
Mine's attached to parts and experience of
Mhm.
being held underwater and all that stuff where I couldn't breathe.
Exactly.
So,
Yes, I believe there are, especially if someone has a fear that's specific.
specific, yeah.
So that's definitely something in the unconscious, because I always wondered, why am I always afraid of being stabbed? And then these parts of me started coming up about what happened to me when I was little and having a knife stuck in my face and you're gonna die and
Right.
we're gonna kill you, and
Right.
so it was very real, but I didn't know that. I couldn't access that, so that was in my unconsciousness.
Yes.
But accessible.
Yes. There you go.
Okay, any other thoughts about any of those things there? Unnoticed perceptions, thoughts. I mean, I think we do that normally, at least in my normal thought process of parts that, especially in relationships and things like that. So your perception, your unconscious thoughts about certain things can very well come up, not only from your subconscious, but from things that you don't even remember that happened to you, you know, from a long time ago. It's like,
Or again, conclusions that you made didn't even have to happen to you, but you put this and this together and it seemed like that was the truth. And even if it wasn't what really happened, it's what you thought was the truth.
I mean, you could think of different things, that maybe somebody who's claustrophobic, maybe they were put in a small space and were
Right.
very afraid when they were young that they might not be able to access.
Right.
I
And
think
we
about,
we can't automatically access it because God designed our mind
Yes.
like that to separate it apart so that we could survive, and then that same God wants to bring us back together. So,
well, also, I think this is true for a lot of women. If you've been sexually abused or sexually molested or something like that, if a man gets close to you or starts to invade your personal space, you find yourself reacting a certain way. You may
Right.
not even know why.
right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios I think we could play.
Right. So,
Yeah.
Sherry, with the automatic skills,
Mm-hmm.
automatic reactions, but does that include, like you mentioned about breathing, so does that include everything that we do automatically, like the heart beating and stuff like that? Is there, your mind is at work there, or are those in another category of automatic?
That goes more into your nervous system, into your autonomic nervous system, the things that automatically happen. Your body knows how to breathe, your body knows how to do certain things, your heart is beating, we don't have to think about it.
But they're not, but Freud or anybody said those.
No, I don't think that came up, not in
Okay,
the
so automatic
research.
skills means what we said about, now we
It's
know
more
how
about
to-
learning.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the learning things
Learning.
that get set. It's not only about the skills that we learn, but it's also what we were taught.
Mhm.
You know, you could think about when you were a baby and you cried. Were your cries paid attention to? Did your mother or someone come and pick you up? Were you fed? Were you changed? Were you all those things? If you didn't, I mean, that's an automatic response. Are your needs being? Those things that you learn, is there going to be somebody there for me?
But are you being taught or are you teaching yourself?
That's a good point. Don't kick this. Please.
Knock the
But
camera
that's a
over.
very good point.
See, I like having him here.
I know,
Brings
you
up a
always
lot of
has
good
good
things.
insight.
Okay. The unconscious mind can be seen as a source of night dreams and automatic thoughts. Okay, so those automatic thoughts they're talking about, or Freud's talking about, is those that appear without apparent cause.
Those are parts.
Okay, and I know night dreams, a lot of them come from our precious little parts, trying to get our attention. Okay, it can be seen as the repository of memories that have been forgotten, but that may nevertheless be accessible to consciousness at some later time. Okay, so like parts of us coming up, God rescuing them. They do come up eventually if you allow them to, because you can push them back down. It can be seen as the locus of implicit knowledge, such as all the things that we have learned so well that we do them without thinking. Okay.
I just want to give an example of something coming up and then pushed back down. Is that when I went to college, and that's when I was able, that God went there with me to remember that I had been sexually abused all those years and by my stepfather, because I was finally away from home. So it was April or May of my freshman year that I read this article in a Christian magazine that talked about incest, and I went, oh my gosh, this happened to me. As I read it, I said, oh my gosh, this happened to me. I think I told one person, and then totally forgot, quote unquote. I mean, I can't even say quote unquote. It's like I totally repressed it again and didn't remember. Then I was sick for almost had to drop out of college. I was sick until the October of that year. I went to 9 different doctors, physical doctors, because my jaw hurt so much and I had this ringing in my ear. And because I had repressed that again. So it totally broke through to the subconscious or conscious, and then it had to go back away again, and I got so sick. And then finally, God brought it up again, and this time I was able to deal with it. But yeah.
Now you think about that. You think about how many people are sick for those same reasons, and
Right.
A lot of times.
are never.
Oh, yeah. A lot, yeah. It's first there was the injustice of the initial abuse, and then the injustice of you being sick and dying, even and all the ramifications of being sick and even living on Earth. And then that's the second injustice. So I mean, there's tons of injustice, but yeah.
Yeah.
So
Not fair, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If you look at this sheet, it says the triangle diagram. That's the one we got up here at the top. So we're gonna fill it in. Okay. So percentage-wise, what are guesses? How much do you think of 100%? How much?
I would have to say, if you start at the top, I'd say 5%
Okay.
subconscious.
Okay. Let's stay there. Karen, what's your guess?
well, I know it said that it's 10%, but if I had to guess, given this information, I would say like 7% because it doesn't seem like it does
We'll
much.
say David 5%. Karen.
I was actually going to say 2, but I brought it up to 5.
Okay. And Sam, what do you say?
12.
12?
I think he added ours together.
Okay, it's actually 10.
Okay.
This is Freud.
For her.
No, this is
Maybe
Freud.
not for me.
This is Freud, the iceberg thing.
Might not be for me.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
That's true.
So your first slot there
Bury everything.
is 10% at the very tip of the triangle is your next blank there.
The very tip of the triangle is your conscious mind.
Yes. It occupies only a small portion of space at the top, a bit like an iceberg, where only a fraction of it is showing above the water. I would try to draw that, but I don't think I do very well.
Again, this is, well, you could just draw the water there.
Okay, so if we have water
Just draw the water coming up to,
and have a little...
well, I just meant you could draw the water on your triangle.
Oh, like this?
Yeah. See?
Okay.
Again, this is Freud. And
It's Freud.
I mean, he's as much as you just saying 5%, 7%. I
Uh-huh.
mean, he had a lot of experience with people, but still.
Yes. Okay. So then, next part here, it probably represents about 10% of your brain capacity. Now, your next blank there is below. This is a slightly larger section that is referred to as your subconscious. It's much larger than the conscious mind and accounts for about, what do you say? What's your guess?
20.
Dave says 20. Karen?
25.
And
Sam?
and
30.
30? Okay, so what do you have left, David?
what do I have left?
Yeah, you got 25, so what's left? Do your math.
75.
What do you got, Karen?
73.
Sam? 42 minus 100?
Or 100 minus
58.
and I'll tell you why I came up with my.
Okay, well, let me finish here.
I had the least in unconscious
Huh?
by a lot. Said I had the least in the unconscious by a lot.
Okay. All right, that's okay.
The polls are in.
Yeah.
Okay, it is much larger than the conscious mind and accounts for about 50 to 60%, according to Freud.
Wow.
What?
See, but now, I will.
Think about memory here.
I can dispute
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I can dispute that in some cases. So
If it was the Price is Right, I would.
Well, it depends on how much abuse someone's gone under and
There
how much
you
they
go.
have to split up into parts.
There you
Because
go.
that's going to eat away at your subconscious and make your unconscious bigger.
That's why I was
Percentage.
saying I saw this as living and breathing, because I think it can change.
Yeah, it changes, yeah.
Yeah.
And it changes as you get more healing, it changes
Yes.
because then, that's why I'm saying we need more room in our conscious and subconscious. to
see, I was
hold all
thinking
this.
about a messed up person.
Yeah,
I really was. I mean, I'm thinking about
Well,
70% that you bury if you've had a lot of abuse, and that's
like normal people.
Yeah, that's where I was
like all
coming up.
people I know. Yeah.
Yeah, so yours kind of would look like
hey, maybe that is mine. Who knows?
maybe like this, like a Hershey Kiss.
Yeah.
A Hershey Kiss.
See, mine could be 5, 20, and 75.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Okay.
No, and I think that's the main point here is that
Mhm.
it is flexible and everyone should be able to say what their own is,
Right.
and then you can chart it and see how it changes.
Right, and I knew that God would show us a lot as we're doing this.
Yeah.
Because even this, even for myself, I see this as larger right now, my subconscious, and this being even more narrow.
We should get
So-
college credit for this.
We should get college credit.
Well, that's what, yeah, that's what
Just make
God
it
told
college.
us.
We'll get credit.
They're kind of like,
Get 3 credits.
well, that doesn't look right, but you know what I mean.
And what is that, Sherry? What is that?
Melted
Is that
base.
your mind? Is that your mind? It's a Picasso.
That's my mind.
That is Sherry's mind. I like your shutter, David.
I would say my subconscious, kind of like that. Where's this being?
Put some flowers in it.
It's an urn.
Looks like a vase, doesn't it?
That's cool.
So, less down here, more in here.
Right. But
Yeah.
where were you 5 years ago? When you didn't know a lot of major stuff.
Like that. Like a flask.
Seriously. So look at how much you've changed your shape. Oh my gosh, we're the God is the potter, we're the clay.
Yeah, really.
Woo!
Yeah, we get moved around, don't we?
That's why we have to be moldable in
Multiple.
advance.
Yeah, those who
Valuable.
aren't. Right?
And that if you
Something like
resist, then you're gonna just be
You're going to crack
shattered.
up.
You're gonna crack. If you resist God trying to mold you like that.
Okay, so the next section. Okay, the
Wait, I
section.
want you to draw mine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What
I
do you
didn't
look like?
realize I forgot you. Okay, let me.
So why do we have a page at the end? Just
That's
says
what
microchips?
Yeah, because we're going to talk about microchips.
Okay.
Well, who I am now, that was just a basic thing of what I
Yeah.
thought for people. But I agree with David. I was thinking of like most messed up people. I don't know what I look like now. So.
Okay.
So your
I think-
Freud's analysis could be for I don't know how you want to say it, a healed person.
I think he was doing it in general, like a general synopsis of the patients that he
The
had.
average person.
Yeah, and that was only because that's all he could get
Yes.
to. Because if he had you as a patient, would he have been able to get to all the stuff that God's gotten to with you, or me? And he wouldn't have. So really, how come in Freud's that lower part of the triangle really that's not the shape of his either, because there's only 30 to 40% left. And it's smaller than
Right.
subconscious.
And I have,
This wasn't his. He did the iceberg.
okay,
Okay, so he had like an iceberg up here, however ice looks,
I understand.
and then getting down here, and then
understand.
making smaller at the
Right.
bottom.
Oh, okay.
But
All right.
But if you really think about it, okay, and this, I know we're not supposed to go under hypnotism and all that, but if you really did have someone hypnotize you and go back all the years that you've been alive, that unconscious part would be huge compared to the top two.
Oh, yeah, I believe that. Because you got a lot of memories.
Yeah, you can't remember all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't really agree with what he's saying.
Mm-hmm. Right, so even so, if you follow the triangle, your 50 and 60 is going to be down here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Even 70, just like I said, 70, well, 75, 70, I'd say 70.
Okay, so this, the way he had it was 30 to 40.
Right. So I don't believe that at all.
Okay, so your blanks on the last one is the section below. Here's your blank. This is the unconscious mind. It occupies the whole width. The whole width is your blank. Of the triangle and fills out the other 30 to 40%.
Which we have disputed and
Yes.
shut down.
We have. We disagree with Freud, which a lot of people have, so. And he's not here to defend himself.
And he's not the ultimate authority either.
No, he's not.
I'm sure, well, I don't know if he's done his best, but.
Okay, and since you were talking about hypnosis, David, that's the next section.
Oh.
Right on target here. All right. So I will give you a little bit of background here, but let me just give you the definition. Okay, hypnosis, the induction of a state of consciousness in which a person apparently loses the power of voluntary action, and is highly responsive to suggestion or direction, another, Its use in therapy typically to recover suppressed memories or to allow modification of behavior by suggestion has been revived, but is still controversial. Okay, and the reason I say ugh is because I know that happened to me. Karen knows it happened to her. And for not any good purpose.
Right,
So, we both say ugh.
yes.
Now, what's happened to me, which I think that everybody in the room knows this, is God was rescuing parts of me, and Karen was the one who was praying every single time. She would just pray as normal, just start praying for parts of me, and I started feeling really sleepy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would close my eyes, which I often do in prayer, but I could feel myself kind of go into a different state of, which I know now is probably a different state of consciousness. At the same time, I was aware of what was happening, but also kind of drifting a little bit, sort of not sure if I was asleep or not, but then being able to come right out of it.
Right.
So I knew God was doing something in me, because then those parts would get rescued. And I couldn't necessarily tell you everything you said,
Right.
but I knew that the parts that were being rescued at the time. And I think at least 3 out of those times, 2 or 3 of those times, you were declaring scripture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you were speaking God's word that's written in scripture. Interesting, because as soon as you were finished, I was wide awake. I was like
Right.
talking, we were praying again, blah, blah, blah. So God said, I'm like, okay, God, what is this?
Mhm.
What are you doing? And he said, I'm going to your unconscious mind.
So it's the same thing that the hypnotists do
In reverse.
in reverse. Yeah.
Except that she was conscious the whole
I
time
was
as
conscious.
well. And see, that's how God was doing it. She didn't blank out like if you were hypnotized by someone else and without God doing
Well, I've
it.
seen them do that on TV without being out all completely too.
Okay.
Oh, they're awake, but they're not in their mind, because they come out of it and they don't know what happened.
What we're saying, and I don't know if you've seen this because I'm not aware of it if they have, but all the hypnosis I know outside of God doing this is that the person will then come out of it and not remember, not
Yeah.
have been aware
Yeah.
during that 20 minutes
Right.
of how long it was, where
Right.
we're saying she was aware the whole time.
Right, I understand.
So she felt it happening, but she was aware, and that's
Mhm.
beautiful how
Mhm.
God does that. God does never do anything weird
Mm-mm.
or make you have to shut down a part of you
Yeah.
in order to do something He's doing. And I was just saying that earlier today, saying in the spirit we do so much in the spirit, but I am totally still on earth and
Present.
aware and present. At the same time, I'm seeing myself do these things, and they're actually happening in the spirit. Whereas with spiritual
Mhm.
evil came knocking on my door when I was little. Didn't even knock; they just came in.
Mm-hmm.
And the spiritual evil works where they had to shut down so much of me, so then all that could happen, and that's an awful creepy
Right.
feeling, and you didn't want to do it, but it was coercion.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the same thing that you were. In fact, you looked so sleepy. I was like, "Are you awake?
Mhm. I
Are
said,
you
"Oh,
with
yeah, I'm
me?"
awake.
And you said, "Yeah, I'm here." She said, "I'm here," because I thought maybe she was tired, because this
Mhm.
is Tuesday night, so
Right.
it's kind of late sometimes. And I thought, well, maybe she's just really tired. And the peace of God can come on you sometimes, and you can feel all sleepy and stuff. But I said, "Are you there? Are you with me?" And you said, "Yeah, I'm here." So I was like, "Okay." So there was no grogginess, no
No.
coming out of anything. But so that's just feels and is much better.
And it is very peaceful, and it's kind of like God doing an operation on you
Right.
while you're under anesthesia, because that's what it feels like, that you're under some sort of anesthesia, but it's God's anesthesia.
Unconscious
You're
anesthesia.
And you're
So
awake.
he can,
Yeah, you're
so
awake
he
of it.
can access and go after those parts of you that aren't easily accessible.
And you're wanting him to. So
Right,
you
and that's what Karen and I were talking about earlier when we were first in here, is talking about resistance, is that I'm not resistant to God going anywhere he wants to, because I trust him. I trust that he's going to go there and do whatever is necessary, and I don't resist God. And I think that's the only way you can go to the unconscious, is if you lay down your resistance to God. And also, I trust Karen. So Karen's praying for me. I'm not resisting because I trust her. There's been so many years of us praying with each other. I don't resist you going there. Because you come and sit with me so many times. My parts know you. Oh, hi, Karen. We know you.
Yeah, even other new parts. Yeah.
Yeah,
And look, with the fortified city, you spoke up, and your part spoke up, and you spoke up for them and said, "Don't come in here fast. Even though it's you, Karen, you can't come in here fast.
Right.
You got to stay at the back."
So there are
in the
times,
back."
yeah.
So you're very aware of that. We communicate it.
Yes. we
Same
do.
time, the other thing we said is, I would never do this on my own,
Right.
because that's dangerous to go into someone's unconscious and say.
Well, you didn't even know
anything.
what you were doing.
Well, I didn't know. That's what I'm saying is I didn't do anything differently. I kept on following God.
Right, yeah.
God said, say these scriptures. I remember the last time it was 2 Samuel 22, which is the Rescue for Destiny decree chapter. And God was having me change it to Him personally speaking. So instead of saying, "You, God, came and rescued me," He said, "I, God, come and rescue you." And so He was declaring it to you. And that's what was happening. But from my experience, I wasn't doing anything. It didn't feel
No.
weird. It didn't feel different. It just
Nothing
felt
different.
like, oh, I'm just following God. He's having me say this, and kept on going.
Right.
Then I finally said, "Are you awake? Are you with me?"
And so what was different was what God was doing in me,
Right.
that I laid
Exactly.
down my resistance so he could do
Right.
that, not even knowing what he was doing.
Exactly.
But then he said, I want you to go and pull your unconscious mind into your conscious mind. So it's interesting because God so many times has, with Karen and I, said, push through, go and declare these things, command these things, do all this. Well, this time he switched it. He said, I want you to go and grab a hold of it and pull it. So we're going down into the unconscious and pulling it up to the conscious.
Right.
Through, yeah. I just realized I did that. Into our conscious mind. But can I do that on my own? Yes, I probably can, but I think that would be hard. I think that those things, especially because I've experienced it now, even today when you were praying for me, felt that whole thing happening again as you were praying for me. Especially when you put your hands on my head, I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like things really shifting
Yeah.
in my brain. I physically could feel the change.
Right. And that time, since we've talked about this, I knew we were going. I saw God. I mean, once God shows us something, then we're really aware of it. So then He showed me, oh, we're going to your unconscious mind. So I went there, but that was again because God was saying, okay, we're going to go there. We're going to open the door so these parts can come forth and stuff.
Right.
So
And I believe you have to come to a place, and we've learned so much, God, just thank you for that. But when you go through all those things and you really develop a trust, you develop a trust with God that He's not going to do anything to harm you.
Right.
And He's not going to do anything to overwhelm you. I think that's the biggest thing about going to the unconscious, because the unconscious can be scary,
yeah,
and it has been scary for me in the past, especially as I begin to remember things. But once you realize that God's got your back and He's not gonna overwhelm you with too much, now I can lay down that resistance. I go, okay, go wherever you want. You know?
So would you say it's accurate to say that the subconscious is easily retrievable and the unconscious is harder to retrieve?
Oh yes.
Harder, but now it's getting easier, definitely. And at
Right.
first we were like, wow, this is really hard, don't know how to
That's why I
access
said harder,
this.
yeah.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say
But
possible.
now it's God's taken us there and it's
Right.
becoming easier, which I
Right.
think, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because now I think it'll get easier and easier.
So do you agree with Freud's percentage breakdown?
Do I agree with that? No. No. But I do know, but Freud didn't know about this, that the parts of us live in that subconscious, unconscious mind.
Right.
They don't necessarily live in the conscious mind, but they
Right.
live in the subconscious, conscious. But in the conscious mind, we are aware of them and know them and see them, speak to them. So I think that it's interesting because in prayer, I just had this thought of when you're praying for somebody. I had this recently, that when I was praying for this lady, she was very aware of what I was talking about. Okay, because God already worked on her to bring up memories that she had forgotten about that were in her unconscious mind. They started coming up. It was overwhelming to her. So she started sharing it with someone else, and then she brought me in, so we started praying. And when I started praying, she was like, oh yeah, you know, that those things that I didn't know about, you know, things that happened to her as a child. So that, I would say, God already worked on bringing those memories of her, at least pieces of them, from the unconscious to the subconscious, so that He could then, through me, go in there and rescue those parts of her. Well, does she have more in there that she doesn't know about? Of course.
Yeah.
We all do. So I think that you can pray for people, well, I know you can, when they have subconscious awareness of parts, and you can pray for them when they have unconscious parts of them. Because how many times do you pray for somebody and they go, I don't know what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, I know this is true because God's showing it to me,
Right.
whether you're able to access it or not right now. Because even that happened with her. She goes, well, I don't remember that. Well, that's okay. That's what God's showing me right now. So I'm going to go ahead and
Right.
pray and speak
But I
it
remember
out.
when that a couple times a long time ago that would
Yeah.
happen. I'd feel like, what do you mean? No, maybe I'm wrong because this person says I don't remember that. Some people get a little belligerent about, no, that can't be true about my mother or whatever.
That's why it's called the unconscious.
Now we understand that. Now I feel confident that it's okay. And then I just started saying, I know God's showing this to me, so just ask Him
Right.
about it. But now this brings more understanding of where
Right.
they really are.
And you can say to that person, well, that's okay if you don't remember. These are probably parts of you that are in your unconscious mind that you're not aware of right now. But they are there and they are in your mind. They are accessible.
Right now, this is huge.
Yeah,
Usually I'll be
but
in
even
that.
letting people know that they are accessible and God's going there right now because He wants to access them and He wants to bring them up in your subconscious mind so that you, on your own, can access them.
Right.
I mean, how powerful is
That is
that?
very powerful. Say that again.
I don't know. What did I just say?
Okay, now, if you had anxiety most of your days,
Right.
that could be from your conscious and your unconscious at the same time.
Oh, that's happened to me. I've had panic. Well, you had a panic attack not too long ago.
Yeah? Must be in my unconscious. I don't
You
remember.
remember that, Karen?
Oh yeah.
As I contacted
Oh,
you
yeah.
by text
Yeah.
and said, please pray for
Yeah.
David.
Oh yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
something about it, but I don't remember what it
You
was.
said, I
about.
can't breathe. You said, something's happening to me. You thought you were having a heart attack?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I started it, and God showed me things, and then we picked it up right there. We were team.
I just don't remember what it was about.
And you started feeling really bad, and so I said, why don't you go lay down? And what happened? I started praying for you. Next thing I know, he's asleep.
Yeah, it's true, it was.
It was
Yeah.
parts
And
of
we were
you.
talking about that, and if you didn't know about parts, if you didn't know how to rescue them like this, and with God, then boy, you're having symptoms of a heart attack. What are you going to do? Go to the hospital?
Here's your
Mhm.
pill, go home
Yeah.
and have it again.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, they would have said, well, we've checked you out, David. We've done all the tests, and you're not having a heart attack. It has to be a panic attack. And that's what happens to people as they go. They think it's a heart attack, and it's actually a panic attack. But for you, it was different because you're not one to get real anxious anyway. You're very calm in nature, very similar to me. You know, we're just very calm. And so you just start saying, wow, I'm feeling really bad. I saw him sitting up. He's like sitting back. He's sitting up. He's like, I can't breathe. I pain in my chest. And I said, well, does your arm hurt? No. I said, okay. So I was like, okay, well, let's just pray, because I didn't know what it was.
Right.
And then Karen started seeing these parts of you, and then I jumped right in, and we just went in there and rescued them. And then it's what happened. Everything subsided. The pain went away. You said, oh, the pain is better. Those were parts in your unconscious mind that were trying to find their way through the gatekeeper to get to the subconscious mind.
Right. So,
So
talk
the-
about the gatekeeper more.
What happened was, as all this was coming up and God was teaching me this, I asked him to show me more and help me, give me understanding of what was going on. And so he took me into 1 Chronicles 9. And I started reading, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is parts of me. God's saying they were in exile. And what I've discovered is that my parts that were exiled were actually parts of me that were in the unconscious, my unconscious mind. So all my exiled parts live down there in the
Right.
unconscious.
Right, right.
And then
They were
God,
exiled. They had to leave. They couldn't be known about. They couldn't be heard from. Couldn't be
Stowaways.
seen anymore. They had to be stowaways. Yeah.
yep, and they were. And then God showed us in prayer when Karen and I were praying Tuesday night that they were so separate from me, they actually lived on a different earth or a different world. So I saw myself on my earth, okay, over here. This is me over here. Everything that I know about myself, my history, my memories, everything. And then these exiled parts had to go over here in this other world, and it spun in its own solar system and everything, but I had no access, didn't know anything about it. So that makes sense. Unconscious mind is what? Inaccessible, right? Is it inaccessible?
Well, it's another reality. You know, it reminds me of you're connecting the dots.
Yes.
Teaching that talked about the double realities, triple realities. So that you've got this. They're both realities, but they're happening. They feel like they're in different places, but you're all one person. So these were so far away that their reality was on another, on another
world.
Earth. And truth is that you're all one person. So then God brought them together.
Yeah, and I remember saying, because you said, oh, we'll build a bridge. I said, oh, we can't have a bridge right now because we're too far apart. But then as God moved, slowed down that earth, slowed it real down, real slow, and brought it real close to the other earth. And then I didn't tell you this, Karen, but I prayed this with Dee, and then I saw God because you said, okay, we'll build a bridge. Well, I said, when two worlds come together, if you've got two circular things, you can't go from one to the next. You really need
You really
a
do need
bridge
that, yeah.
from one to the other. God showed me that bridge was a subconscious mind.
Oh.
So I'm moving from,
You might know.
I guess
Yeah, I was
I
just
better
gonna say you might
draw.
want to draw that because
move by urn. See if I can draw a circle.
Could look like a piece of bazooka bubblegum.
Did it? That's my round earth there. Brought it real close. So I had my two earths here, and then he built a bridge like this, so that all the parts of me over here.
because that was your conscious mind over there to the left, right? Or was that?
This was my conscious,
Oh, okay, I saw it opposite.
and this is my unconscious. And this is my subconscious.
Oh.
So then, I know with Dee, when I was praying for her, all her parts, when the world started coming together, I could hear them cheering. They're like, we're here, we're here. And that was so much her includer. They were like, oh, we want to be a part of this. We want to be a part of your conscious mind. They were eager, and then they started really kind of running across the bridge and coming to the conscious mind. So, but that was all getting more understanding, after prayer.
Right.
That's what was happening. So, but just real quickly, I had looked up the definition of exile. That meant expulsion from one's native land by authoritative decree. banished from your own land. So if you're banished from your consciousness or your subconscious, well, guess what? You're going to the unconscious. And parts of you, or memories of, or whatever it is, that gets pushed into the unconscious mind are probably those that either have to go there for survival, they're unwelcomed, you don't want to remember. I mean, there's a lot of different
Well, see, that goes
things.
up. I'm glad you brought that up because that's what, in the whole cover-up thing, the whole cover-up teaching, this was unacceptable what was going on, so you had to cover it up. So it's similar to, well, I've got to put this in my unconscious because it's unacceptable in the front, which is your
Right.
conscious and your subconscious. So you had to put it away.
Mhm.
So that's part
Exactly.
of the cover-up. And we talked about this earlier, Sherry, that I was like, God, what? Like sometimes we go through stuff and it's kind of like we're so in the forest. But I asked him today, what's going on here? We're going through so much struggle and we're learning and everything, but it's not easy, right? God's freeing us, but it's not easy. But so it kind of helped me zoom out and said, wow, this is really a result. Going to the unconscious mind is a result of back in October when God started saying about cover-up, and us continuing to say, I don't want any cover-up. I don't want any cover-up. I don't want any cover-up between you and me, God. I don't want any cover-up anywhere in my life. And I don't care how hard it is. I don't want any cover-up because that's fake. So as we do that, as you're willing to not have cover-up, as you hate cover-up and don't want it, you're going to go to the unconscious mind because a lot of that was covered up. So God
Yes.
says, okay, let's go there then. And
Into
He
the
makes a way.
resistance.
And He
Yeah.
makes a way.
Right. So, along with that, another definition of exile, and this really resonated with me, is prolonged separation from one's country or home as by force or circumstance. So, parts of me, guess what, had to go away. They were separated from my conscious mind and my subconscious mind from my home. That was my home. My home is my conscious and subconscious mind that I can continually retrieve. And they had to go away. So guess what? They developed a new earth. And they lived over there. And then God said, come on home.
Yep.
Come on home. Go pull those things out of your unconscious mind and bring them. He said, you can go get them and bring them back home. So I heard him calling them home. He said, it's time to come home. It's time to come home. And he kept saying that, it's time to come home. So they were very eager and have been eager to get back home. But I didn't think about you, David, is so much abuse in your home. So much physical abuse, mental abuse, just a lot of abuse that parts of you, they were, I see this, that parts of you were happy to be exiled because then they didn't have to be there
really.
anymore.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, let's go get on another planet. Okay, because we don't want to be here. Because if we're here, we're going to die.
I see that with you. They're really good at camping out. They're really good at survival skills, like in the woods and stuff. So I see your parts as being better than like my parts or any parts of you have seen that you were like, I'm out of here. Maybe that's a man thing. Like I can take care of myself.
Take care of ourselves, yeah.
So I'm at 2 years old, 4 years old. You're just like, I'm just okay. I don't want to be here, so I'm going to move over here, which makes it harder. And maybe this is why men. It's a thing with men that it's a more of a disconnect. Your worlds are really far away.
Apart, yeah.
And and so we have to pull those things together.
And that's what God is showing. And I know He said, and I haven't told you this, David, but God said that He was going after the men this year. Okay, and that means He's going after you and after Timothy especially. Sam's already here, but He's going after and bringing you back home. And so the parts of you need to know that the home that you have is you. It's not the home with Luella and Gary, okay, and with your brothers. It's home, David's land, David's home, David's whole person. And so they can come and they can be survivors here on your earth, your conscious mind, instead of being separate over here in a different
strong
world.
survivalists and fight and.
Well, I see your
Yeah,
big
they
solar
can do it.
system now. God's showing me your solar system, and he's like pulling, he's reaching his arm out, pulling that world, your unconscious world, over to your conscious world. Tractor beam?
Gallagher.
Yeah, wow. Just since you said that, he's doing it even faster now. He's like, he's willing.
Because you're responding.
Yeah, you're
responding.
willing to let God go to your unconscious mind. And so,
I appreciate that.
yeah. So, and that reminds me of when God says, go pull it. You know, I see my unconscious mind. It's so funny. It looks like a suitcase in a way, but I can only see the top of it, and it's got 2 handles on it. And I just reach down and grab it, and I start pulling it forward. So it's kind of like a tractor beam, right? So you would reach down there and pick it up and
God
pull
might
it
give
in.
different imagery because I haven't seen that for me.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
that was just
so it could be different for. I'm just saying that for the video for people
for everyone.
to-
Yeah, it would
to
be
say
different.
It could be different, you know.
Right. Well, that was my first picture, but then I saw the world. So,
Yeah.
but the thing that I think that really was good for me to know that God was showing me is that it's accessible. Because you hear, well, it's inaccessible, your unconscious mind's inaccessible. Well, mine's not, because God showed me it had handles on it. Why would it have handles if I couldn't go get it, you know? So that's what God showed me. Go get it. It's like it's already there for you to grab a hold of and pull it. You just have to want to.
Right.
And so I had to want to. Okay, so, and then in the scripture in 1 Chronicles 9, it was talking about the people coming back that were exiled. In verse 1, people of Judah were exiled to Babylon because they were unfaithful to the Lord. The first of the exiles to return to their property in their former towns were the priests. Okay, and that's when God started saying, these are parts of you that were exiled. And then went down to verse 10 and starts talking about the returning priests. Among the priests who returned were Jedediah, Jehoram, I guess his name, Jachin, Azariah, son of Hilkiah, son of Mesullam, son of Zadok, son of Marioth, son of Ahitub. Should have Sam doing this. He does languages. But anyway, when I read that, God said, it's not enough for the parts of you to come out of exile, but you need to know their names.
Right.
So then the parts were saying, okay, well, we want to tell you our name.
Right.
So when they started to come forth, it was interesting because I only got 4 of them so far, but the first one was, the name was Fight Back.
Amen.
I'm going to fight back.
I like your name.
And then when I got to number 4, it was also Fight Back. So then the number 1 said, oh, well, I'm fight back mentally. I fight back with my mind, and I fight back with my words. So that part of me was missing, that I could fight back with my words. Well, when you're abused or sexually abused when you're little, they take your word no from you. So you can't use your word no. So I wasn't able to say no, don't do that. I couldn't scream. I couldn't any of that because they bypassed that. The second one was tell someone. That was the second part. The third one was say no over and over again if necessary. I like that
I
one.
like that too.
And then number 4 was kick and hit and fight back physically. So punch, hit, kick, bite,
Right.
scream. You know, that was number 1. So that was the exile part. And then right after that, that's when the gatekeepers came in.
I think that's verse 17. Look in the
Yeah,
see
probably could.
17.
Yes, the gatekeepers who returned were Shalom, Akub, Talman, Ahiman, and their relatives. And then Shalom was the chief gatekeeper. Prior to this time, they were responsible for the king's gate on the east side. These men served as gatekeepers for the camps of the Levites. And then it went on to say there were other relatives of Shalom that were responsible for guarding the entrance to the sanctuary, just as their ancestors had guarded the tabernacle and the camp of the Lord. So, and then these parts of me were going, well, we're gatekeepers. And so I looked up, I think I looked up the definition. Someone who controls access to something. And then I was looking in the scripture, and it said the person that was in charge of the gates identified, so they identified anyone who coming and going. They counted the number of people coming and going. They supervised any traffic flow through it. They also did things like collecting money. They removed articles that were used to worship Baal instead of God. So they were responsible to go and collect things that were not of God and discard of them. So I was like, wow, these gatekeepers, they do a lot. So those are the parts of me that said that they were gatekeepers. So if you look back at the triangle up here, the gatekeepers are really responsible of what comes from your unconscious to your subconscious.
No, only let it through if they think it's safe.
If it's safe.
That's why you need a safe place, a large space. I mean, this goes back to the very foundation of Rescue for Destiny
Yes.
that God gave us. You have to have a large space that's safe, and where people you're going to be seen and heard and believed, things like that. I want to read those other two definitions
Okay,
that we
go
found
ahead.
for gatekeepers that night. Second one is to be a guardian or to monitor. So they're monitoring that door. And gatekeepers are ones who determine the traffic or flow through the gate.
Yes.
And in your research, you said that in the Bible, the gatekeeper gave messages to the whole city.
Yeah, that's right. That was
So
the
if
other
someone
thing.
came
Yeah.
with a message to the city, the gatekeeper would receive the message and then shout it out or transport it, however they did it, get it out to the whole city. And so they had a lot of jobs. So then we saw your parts. I came up to the gatekeeper and I said, well, tell your city this.
Yeah, the coast is clear.
The coast is clear. That's what I said. I said, here's the message. The coast is clear. And then they started shouting it to the rest of the city.
And that's when the worlds showed up. That's when the other Earth showed up.
Oh, that makes sense. The coast is clear. So now the unconscious it's
Connect.
okay to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm declaring that for everybody
Yes.
on the
Coast is
video
clear.
and in here that the coast is clear.
Yeah.
Gatekeepers. To the gatekeeper. Yes. So, but the other thing is that the gatekeepers are very strong,
Yeah.
and they're very capable of keeping things out.
Yes. Amazing.
Very
So how did I not know what was going on, like in my conscious or subconscious mind? That's how strong the gatekeepers. And I think you read in the Bible there were several gatekeepers for
Multiple.
one gate, several gates, and then several gatekeepers for each one. So they're really on
Had a
patrol.
very particular job. Had to be very
And it's for
responsible.
survival.
Yeah. You don't just give a gatekeeper to somebody who's lazy and
Right.
yeah.
And yet those parts of you had to become gatekeepers. But then what did they not get to do? They didn't get to have the freedom, and I
I made time off.
Yeah, God gave them then time off and said they could have a vacation. I remember that because they were just worn out from trying to keep the flow. Is it okay to remember this? And as we said, as people get older, they don't go there.
And that was
The more weary the gatekeepers are.
right. And that was at the moment that I started getting that kind of sleepy, kind of going into that state where God was accessing the unconscious,
So let me ask you a question, just for kicks.
or for other reasons,
For
importance.
people who have been diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's, do you think that's mostly physical or mostly mental?
I think it's both.
Yeah,
I think
what's-
you can have one or the other or together.
But what I'm really asking is, what percentage-wise do you think is? Do you have any idea? What's your guess on that?
I don't, but I think about the research that they've done as far as scans and things on people who have dementia. There's actual atrophy in the brain. So the
Okay.
brain is actually shrinking, but
Right.
does the brain shrink because of age, or does the brain shrink because it's constantly being repressed?
Trauma.
Yes.
Okay, so
And it's areas of the brain, so it's not like the whole
Right.
brain is atrophy, but particular areas in your brain can atrophy.
okay. So are there any studies or is there any record of, let's say, people who have the percentage of the population, let's just say in the U.S. for example, that have dementia or Alzheimer's? Is this percentage like tenfold what it used to be 100 years ago? Is there a reason for it? It's like 100 years ago, was that uncommon, or did that always happen?
Well, I think that's hard to say because they didn't have the technology and things that they do now to
Yeah,
To
let's
monitor
say
and research
50,
it.
60 years ago.
the same thing. I mean, it's so
So recent.
recent. But I think that there is a lot of environmental factors that
Yeah.
have to do with mental
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure
abilities
that.
and so But I think that even without all that, I think that you would still see some deterioration.
Well, I'm sure
Because
you
of
will. I
parts,
mean, I
yeah.
knew that, but I'm just curious.
Oh, that's a good question. We don't know.
Yeah, but I do want to add that as if you don't have the parts of you rescued and you get older and older and older, you develop more parts and it gets harder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
So, but what was the last thing that we had on our papers here? I know I wanted you to talk about the microchips. I did exile,
Microchips.
pulling the unconscious to the conscious, microchips. Do you want to explain that? What happened to you, Karen?
Yeah. One of the things that God showed us was one of the next things he was doing was stripping away. So whereas we used to always see him dismantling by taking things apart, and there were big things, and he'd dismantle it, and he'd dismantle things in us, in our belief systems or whatever, and there was always parts there, and he'd rescue the parts, right? So then, just a few weeks ago, he showed, and you saw it first, about this stripping away, where he was going into the house, instead of like demolishing it or taking it all down, taking off the wallpaper, taking off layers of paint, where it was very much like this is good, this piece is good, but we're gonna have to peel this
The bones
back.
are good, yeah.
And so he wasn't gonna go in and destroy the whole thing, and that's micro, macro. Micro within us, macro within churches and everything. Some churches he's like, this is a mess, I'm just gonna have to dismantle in big ways the whole thing, but other ones have just little things that are, certain things that are wrong, he's gonna strip away. So he gave us that term about stripping away, and so I totally started experiencing that, and it was really,
Yes, you did.
really hard. So I just wanted to explain it so that people can know what it's like. But I said, again, God, go totally anywhere you want. I'm open to you, I'm not gonna have anything covered up, so go there. Ooh, did he go there? So I started seeing things come down as wallpaper, and there would be a big sheet of wallpaper, and on the wallpaper it was, like the print on a wallpaper keeps on repeating. So on this wallpaper,
Pain.
it was pain, 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 pain. There it was on the wallpaper. And it was the paint, but this was peeled off, and this was the back side. So the other side is the part that looks nice in the house.
The
and has
flowers, the
picture.
stripes.
Oh yeah, everything's fine. Here we have a happy life, whatever. And so, but as he peeled it off, all this paint was there, and then I saw all these parts that were stuck on the wallpaper, amongst all the paint.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. It was very painful. And I was really having excruciating emotional pain like I don't think I've ever had before. It was just like, there's no way you would want to go there. You were just automatically covered up in it. At first I didn't even recognize it as much as then it started coming full force of going, oh, this is parts of me. So pretty much easily these parts come down, that's the good news. They come down and then they get rescued and saved. But the peeling apart of this is quite painful, and I kept on. You'll see this if I showed you my notebook. You'd see this shape because it happened for several days in a row where, oops, it was the stripping apart. It was like I would feel God
Pulling it apart.
pulling it apart, and then revealing. First of all, though, I'd feel the pain, and then the parts would get free. So I just wanted to share that. So that kind of led up to the whole microchip thing that happened yesterday, right?
Yep.
So in the midst of a new level of pain, and you were praying, even when you prayed for me on your own, you were seeing all this wallpaper coming down. So it's a huge thing that's been going on for a week or two. So then the last couple of days, huge stuff going on in me, in a whole area, especially of an area of abandonment. Which, yes, have I dealt with that before? Yes.
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 Many times.
Yes, many times, but here it was again on the wallpaper. But what happened? The chips, this is a weird feeling, but I saw myself, well, first I saw the two me's.
Yes.
And if you've been doing this any length of time, you already felt this, so it might sound weird to new people, but no one watching this video is new, right? So there was this was me that I was feeling the other day, but this dotted one is who I was just a couple days before. So I felt like I had shifted over, and yet who I was, well, Karen, was in dotted lines now, and I was now this Karen because I had said, God, open this up, open this up, open this up, and he was going there. So this me, finally yesterday I was aware of it enough to say, well, if this is me now, I better just find out who I am and where I am and what's going on, because as much as I might want to be this other me, this one's fading out and this is me now, okay? And that feels weird just in itself. So as I started saying, okay, God, let's go there, I want to go there. And that's what I always give you credit for coining the phrase active participation. It's not just about God coming and doing all this stuff. I had to say, God, I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, this is the new me. And then it felt all of a sudden like I was turned inside out. And that's a weird feeling too. And it wasn't like organs were showing as I was turned inside out, but it was like all these, it sounds kind of grotesque, but it was like all these giant things of flesh were just all over me. And I just felt awful. And I had to stay calm. But as we said, we used to be able to stay calm and invite God in. That wasn't working anymore. You have to do something extra, and you've said that's why you got to pull from the unconscious to the conscious. So I was like, okay, I'm staying calm, I'm inviting you, and I was like, I still need to do something more.
Actively participate.
Let me go get somebody. What'd you say?
Actively participate.
Actively participate in a new way, though, because
Yes,
I was
in a
always
new
actively
way.
participating, but I've got to do something more. So this is all this. So this one's gone now. Okay. So this is all these, like, it was like giant folds of flesh. Okay, so then what happened is there were these dark, like little black things that were stuck in me all over through this flesh that was now turned inside out. Now you can see that if it was the way it was, if all that was inside instead, it would be really hard to get to. And that's why God turned it inside out.
Unconscious.
Because God, yeah, right. That's what my unconscious mind looks like. What shape is that? Yeah, so I know God could get there, but for me to be able to participate like I needed to, I think he had to turn it inside out so we could get there. So I was like, okay, so there's these little black things. Okay. It's so cool because I wasn't, you can't make this stuff up. Okay. Because as God started pulling out these little black things, I was seeing them, and they looked like these little kind of pieces of plastic that were all colored in black. Different shapes. Like they had been broken though. They were sharp.
Yeah, broken pieces.
They were broken pieces of these little black things. Well, I see God start pulling them out, and at first it was slow, and I had to participate. We're pulling these things out. Well, then he started placing them next to each other, and they all fit together to make a whole. And when he fit them together, there was about 4 or 5 in each group. Made a shape like a dark rectangle, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a microchip. It's a microchip, because what the miracle, I mean the whole thing's a miracle, right? But then he did this miracle before my eyes, and what couldn't be done with broken pieces is that he brought it all together and sealed it into one piece. So we're bringing all these chips together into one piece, and then I was like, oh my goodness, this is a microchip. And we're talking about the unconscious mind and how the circuitry of the mind, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then I looked up the definition of the word microchip, and it says a microchip is a unit of packaged computer circuitry. Which right then I was like, okay, packaged computer circuitry, that's my brain, that's part of my brain. Okay, this is a piece of my brain.
How you're wired.
Right. That is manufactured from a material such as silicon in a very small scale. Okay? All right. Microchips are made for program logic.
Yes.
Okay, logic or microprocessor chips. And for computer memory.
Yes.
Notice all these words? Logic, memory. There are memory or RAM chips. And microchips are also made that include both logic and memory, and for special purposes such as analog to digital conversion, bit slicing, and gateways. I thought gateways wasn't interesting. I don't know what that means in computers, but I thought, gatekeeper, gateways.
Makes a way into another program. That's a gateway.
An avenue.
Okay, so an avenue. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is the circuitry of my mind, but they were all broken up, and that was in my unconscious because I had to not even just put it in my unconscious. It couldn't just be a microchip that was put away there. They had to be broken up so it could never come back together. But the miracle,
Right, and they were broken up. I see this. They were broken up so that there was no gateway. There was no need for a gatekeeper. You were totally sealed off. So that it would never come up.
right?
So it was like they were trying to seal off your unconscious mind from your subconscious, but that I don't know that is possible. But I think that was the attempt.
Right, right. And I remember, and it's on my notebook just now because we were following along the notebook, that after we prayed for you and saw the gatekeeper thing, then God turned to me, you saw him turn to me and said, okay, now your gatekeeper only has like, the doors open only a little bit, and then you saw my earth, and I saw my notebook, and God put oil all over it because it was really tight. So everyone might have a different experience because everyone's different. So we'll just go with it. But yeah, so you're right. So it was broken up, and then I looked down, and God gave me awareness of these microchips, and I was like, oh my gosh, I see a bunch of pieces of microchip. They were like in my knee cap, like they were just like stabbing because they all had really sharp edges.
Yes.
And so they were causing pain all over me and all over in my unconscious mind. So then after that, I see him put them all together, and happened relatively quickly. So then later in the day, this is just yesterday, I saw him then in my mind putting them in the place where they go.
Where they came out of.
He put them in the slot, like it had a little slot right here, and he put it in inside, and I saw all the blinky lights come on in my mind. And I felt it, like a lot of times we feel things physically. And I felt it in my mind, just like
The lights
starting
came
to,
on.
like the lights were coming on. I saw the blinky lights. I felt the lightness in my mind of being able to remember this and have it all work, the integrated circuitry work like it was supposed to. And then after a couple hours of that, because I was at Walmart and I was talking to you when I was at Walmart telling you all this stuff, and I'm doing my things that I needed to do. A couple hours later, I see God just like, he did like this on my head, and he's like, all finished. He kissed me on the forehead. He said, okay, we're done. So I was like, okay.
So if you could put this in a movie, you'd be rich.
All of this in a movie, we'd be rich.
Yes.
And paintings that Sherry's doing, that we've, just amazing. It's true, right? We'll make a movie of this. Remember all the things that happened. But so that in the midst of talking about unconscious mind, God chooses to get these microchips out of there, and just the whole definition of microchip, and I'm just like, okay, wow.
And I believe that for you, Karen, that was necessary because the evil people shut so much down in you that their intention was to seal you off. And so without those microchips, because now those microchips are back, I see that whole area now beginning to open up.
Yeah.
Where you just had a little bit, now I just see it like sliding open, and I see your gatekeepers there, so they were standing by. But they had no job to do because
not in the garden. It was broken up. It was never going to get together. But again, it goes to Isaiah 41, where it says, everyone who sees this miracle will know that God did it. So it's a miracle. And then after that, I heard, it was last night or this morning, I heard like the little whir. I'm like, my brain whirring really good, like a computer. And I'm not finished with all that yet. So I don't even understand it all. But it is awesome and amazing. So that's my microchips.
Yeah. Well, see, it's interesting because I see your gate is it's kind of like electronic now, and it must be because of the microchips. Because see, the gatekeepers, like all they have to do is like hit a button and it slides.
Oh,
goes back.
that's good. I like that. Well, I always like lots of buttons and stuff. Yeah, that's good.
It's like a sliding gate. That's pretty cool.
And it really started on Thursday when you started praying and declaring for me about which, prompted by God, you were doing that without me even knowing. You told me about it later, but declaring about me being well in areas of relationship and stuff like that. So this is where this goes to: relationship, abandonment issues, and whatever other thing there is. So.
Well, God shows us that we're moving fast and things are moving fast, but there was just this sense in the last week that it needs to be faster. You know, and I think I told you that it's kind of like we've been going through all this, and it's like, okay, enough is enough. Let's get this moving. Let's get this. So actively participating, but also jumping in there, because that's what I did. I jumped in. I said, okay, God, enough is enough. Let's do this. Let's get this done. And really, I think it was rising up in me that I need to. This is for me, not for everybody else. Everybody else can talk to God about that. But for me, it was like, I need to be doing this every day. I need to jump in here and do what God has me do, is to declare, to command, to whatever, pull things forward, you know, and do that, because it doesn't even take that long, you know, a period of time.
Right.
But really feeling God urging me to do that. And I said, well, you know, the priorities for me in my life, for you and David and Sam. And so really jumping in there and praying for each one of you, but, you know, moving this along, moving it, you know, because we can just sit back and we'll say, okay, God, whatever you want to do, but are we going to participate, move things along? And so, and I know you're always actively participating, and I mean, God had me go right there for you first, and to say, okay, let's do this, let's. And I said, you know, and I told you that. I said, you know, Karen's been dealing with this for many, many years, and enough is enough, and let's take care of this now. And
Thank you.
welcome.
That's good. And macro level, God showed us on Tuesday night to pull everything forward into 2016.
Yes,
So
that's right.
He always does micro. Everything micro is also macro.
Because
Everything
things were
macro is also
dragging.
micro.
Things were dragging in that area, because God had intended to do a lot in 2015, and I'll say whatever I want to say, but a lot of people stepped out.
Well, there's a lot of resistance, and that's where he has us plowing up the resistance.
And so we went back to, it was beginning of 2015, and pulled everything into 16. And so.
We don't know what that means exactly. We know a little bit, but not always. But we just do what God shows us to do.
Well, I think that the resistance and he overrode a lot of what didn't get accomplished, and just pulled all that forward and brought everybody. Oh yeah, he brought everybody. He said that was going to be that was going to be connected with in that time period, that we were going to get them and bring them into 2016 so that they weren't missed, because there were people that have chosen not to go along with us in the J2A, and so they were going to touch a lot of people's lives and connect with them, and that wasn't happening, so God was going to go back and get those people. So, and more to come, because I know this is huge, and so there'll be more and more teaching. Probably some on the resistance. And whatever else that God gives us. So we give God all the glory, and we thank you, God, for teaching us. We thank you for everybody who's listening and watching the video in the days to come. And we thank you, God, that you'll continue to go to each person and rescue the parts of them in the subconscious, the unconscious, and in all of them, so that they can be who they were called to be, God, and who you created them to be from the very beginning. And the very first time they took their breath on this earth. So we thank you, God, and we give you the glory, and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.